Welcome back. I'm your host, Tamara Gady, with another episode. But first, if you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. So let's get a conversation going about your title needs. I'm really excited about the guest that I have today. We're going to talk about 2023 and what the year ahead is going to look like. I want to introduce Nick Good. He's with the Good Home team. He's got a team that produced over $60 million in production in 2022. He has also got a national podcast, and he's all around a super whiz at information and a great source of knowledge. So he's been on my podcast before, but I wanted to bring him back. I didn't bring the rest of the guys this time, just Nick. So welcome back to the show, Nick. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
Happy
thanks
New
for
Year.
having me. Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's time to go.
Is this the first show of the new year?
It is the first show of the new
I'll take
year.
it. The first one of 23.
See, now you should feel like a VIP.
I do.
It's a big
You
deal.
always make me feel like a VIP.
Good. So I like to go ahead and just jump right in. Let's get going. We got a lot to talk about today. I took a quote from, and if you guys aren't listening to their podcast, you really need to. It's called the only
real estate podcast worth listening to.
I mean, mine's got to get in there somewhere.
Of course. We're plugging it on this show and that show. Look.
I pulled a stat, and you knew from my notes this was coming. Even when it's a train wreck, this is not a stat, it's a quote. Even when it's a train wreck, you still need to continue moving forward. Yes. Is that the tone for 2023?
Sure. I mean, I think that was the tone for the last 6 months of 2022. The train wreck started then. We're now already we're still experiencing it, right? So it's the train wreck happened in probably May or June or July of 22, and we're now feeling the shock waves of it.
We're in the cleanup stages.
Yeah, not all the way, but we're getting there.
Well, and I had my mastermind group yesterday, and I heard some positive news. Maybe you can confirm it, but they're experiencing a lot more level out with consumer information. Like they're feeling like their consumers are a lot more educated. They're having a lot less conversations about seller pricing and buyer confidence in the market. Are you experiencing the same?
Sure. I mean, we've seen the demand pick back up for sure. So I think a lot of it had to happen to see, all right, we had to get used to this new normal that we were in. So, COVID happened in 2020. There was a little bit of a delay there of then from the market taking off, right? So we had to get used to what that normal was. Now we're switching back into, everything hitting the fan and interest rates going sky high that we haven't seen since really 2006 and 7. Before the Great Recession of 08. And now we're getting used to what rates are, and we're starting to see the media pick up. There was a Today Show segment, I think it was in the past 2 weeks, because it happened after the first of the year, and they did a segment on why it's a great time to buy.
Oh, okay.
And you hadn't heard that previously. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the buyer sentiment report was saying this is not a great time to buy. It's not a great time to buy. And rarely have I ever seen that report ever say it's a good time to buy, first off.
Right.
But what we're seeing here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we're really doing a better job of educating even all the real estate community here locally is, finding ways to get the interest rate lower, but showing the good news of saying, look, the last 2 years, in order to buy a home, you had to go over asking price. Mm-hmm. You had to go over what the appraised value was going to be. So not only did you have your down payment, then you had to go above and beyond that to bring cash at closing to match the difference between that appraisal price and your sales price. And that didn't go to your equity.
Correct. And
now what we're seeing is in Dallas-Fort Worth, the stats for pre-owned sales is that the average homeowner is coming off of their list of sales price by 7%.
I was thinking it was between 5 and 10.
Yeah, 7%. So right now you can come in and say, look, we can negotiate. We can get you closing costs. We can get you a home warranty. And with those closing costs, we're going to go back to the lender and use those funds to do an interest rate buy down so that we can get you a lower than advertised rate right now. And then in the next 2 to 3 years, the goal is to refinance you because our expectations and the industry's expectations is that the interest rates are going to come back down. Probably, somewhere in the mid fives.
Yeah.
And then in the next 24 months, hopefully we never see the high 2s and 3% ever again. That wasn't good for us and good for the economy, but it's probably going to come back down to somewhere in the 5s. And so what is that going to do? for our industry. It's going to create a mini refinance boom. So our lenders who have been struggling the past 6 months and probably will struggle the first half of 23, they'll start to pick it back up, and we'll start to see more of a leveling off.
I think there's one thing that's interesting about you, Matt and Brian, because I listen to your podcast, and I don't think it matters what kind of market we've been in since I've been listening to the podcast. You always say it's a great time to buy.
Sure. Absolutely.
But that's because you use strategies, you wield those strategies to your advantage to get your buyers into homes, right? Yeah. Where everybody else is checking out. I mean, I had all kinds of realtors last year. They're like, I'm out on buyers. I'm not even working with them. And you guys were saying it's a great time to work. It's a great time to buy a home.
I will tell you right now that last year in 2022, the Good Home team had a record year representing buyers.
That's
over
so
35.5 million in closed buyer volume, which is, for us, we're more listing dominant, a listing dominant team. And so for us, that was a record number. And I will always tell people, I'm not one of those realtors that say you should always buy or sell. I'm going to always say it's a great time to buy or it's a great time to sell, dependent on the situation that you're in. So if you're renting right now, it's an amazing time to buy. If you need to downsize and get out of that larger house, it's an amazing time to sell and buy. If you're looking at buying just to get out of a situation, I mean, I don't know many situations that wouldn't be a good time for you to buy. Maybe if you're not having the money and you're trying to stretch those funds, don't buy. Right? Or if you're looking to sell just to test the market, just to cash out so that you can go buy another house and hopefully the market goes up and you're able to get the same type of return that you've had over the past 3 to 4 years, don't sell. But there's always a reason why it's a great time to sell or buy, and we'll never change that message.
I have a question that's totally off the cuff that you made me think about. One of the effects that we've seen come out of the market is a big rise in property taxes, right? Because the huge appreciation gains. And everything that I'm reading, contradict me if I'm wrong, is that those appreciation gains have significantly slowed, something to more of a traditional market, right? That we're going to see in 2023, 2024, something 6 to 8% is what I'm hearing.
Probably. I think it's going to be lower than that. In fact, I personally think that the people that bought in the last 2 years will actually see a decrease in their property values for a temporary time, right? We got to have it leveling off, right? It's like bouncing back and forth before it slows down. And so I think in 23, maybe in the beginning of 24, when they're coming out and reassessing property values, I think certain people will be able to protest them and get theirs lower. Ultimately, as a market as a whole, will go up 3 to 5%, sure. My personal belief, and I think we need to do a better job of this, property values is a killer.
Yeah.
I think that the state of Texas needs to put a cap on that.
Yeah.
I think the cities and counties need to come together and put caps on that, because ultimately for the average American, the number one way to build wealth is through owning real estate and owning their primary residence. And so we have to get back into stop thinking that I can't buy, not only because housing's too expensive, but then you've got maintenance, then you've got insurance. Our insurance costs right now are going through the roof.
Yes, they are.
And then we've got property taxes. So when you hit it with that trifecta of housing costs is high, interest rates are high, insurance rates are high, then property taxes are through the roof. Like, if you're a first-time home buyer, or maybe someone who is looking at retiring, like, why would you want to go and make any type of real estate transactional move? It's going to scare you. So we need to do a better job as an industry to get with our politicians and figure out how to put caps on it. I'm all for less government, but I also believe in that, for average Americans to go build wealth, we got to get them into wanting to own their own primary residence at least.
Well, and I think that just knocks a lot of people out. I mean, first of all, they had to pay $100,000, 50, $100,000 to get over asked to get into their house, which, again, to your point, doesn't go to their equity. That was cash out of their pocket. You can say goodbye to that. And then you're right. They get in the home, they have maintenance, and then their taxes have gone through the roof. I mean, and then what if they have a life change? They want to have a baby. They want to, whatever it is.
Or they get sick.
Or they get sick.
Right. And you get sick or something happens and you get cancer and then your income earnings drop, or you got to go focus on that. You shouldn't worry about losing your house because of property taxes or interest or insurance rates have gone up. Right. And so there needs to be some better protections in place, because ultimately, there should be a capped or tiered model at certain price points. Like anything over $1 million, it should be, all right, this is the max. 500 to this, it should be somewhere in a max between that, and anything lower than that, put a cap on that, and then the cities and counties can go and figure out their budgets from there. Actually, it'd probably make the cities and counties make their budgeting a lot easier because they're going to know roughly what areas they're going to be able to generate the property tax values from.
Do you think, now I'm not talking about foreclosures, okay? Because I don't think we're going to see foreclosures. I don't care what anybody says. However, do you think that we're going to have an uptick in buyers in the next year or two having to sell their home because they can no longer afford it?
Yes. I've already seen it right now. We have a team in Austin that we're already starting to experience. Look,
Austin had huge gains, bigger than us.
Yeah, for sure. And so our Austin team, and we're already experiencing here too, where there's job layoffs starting to happen, right? Because look, we're going through not every job sector is doing that well in this market. And so we have people that are losing their job that push the limits, because of the last 2 to 3 years of where prices have gone. Now they can no longer afford the house. So we are starting to see some short sales. We're going to naturally see foreclosures tick back up to a normal range, right? So we will see foreclosures go up only because we were basically at zero during COVID. So
that's what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't want to hear that we're going to have a foreclosure boom in DFW.
Look, there's certain people that have been pushing that message. I strongly disagree with it. And anybody who says that we're going through a recessionary style foreclosure boom, those are the people that are putting fear in the water, right? And ultimately they are looking to reap rewards off of either buying it at a discount, getting, trying to get them a short sale, whatever that may be, and homeowners still have a ton of equity in their house.
That's what will cause. That's the reason we won't have a foreclosure.
100%. Yes,
you can sell your home and walk away with $200,000 or $300,000 and call it,
or break even. Right. Yeah. So the good news is we'll be able to. There are going to be some people that break even. That's okay. That we're saving their credit.
Right.
And ultimately help them restart. The next chapter, and when they're ready, when they get financially stable again, then we help them get back into a new home.
I've said this time and time again, and I'll probably be singing this song for at least another year. The thing that makes me the saddest in this type of a market, look, we've all seen record profitability, right? We've all enjoyed the success of real estate in Texas in the last 2.5, 3 years, whatever. I just always get concerned about Texans being able to afford to buy homes in Texas and veterans being able to use their VA loans. Now, luckily, the diversity in loan type is back, right? You can now win a home with a VA loan without an issue, but the affordability factor for Texans in Texas is still kind of a question mark. We'll see some of that market correction, right, over the next year, but is it enough?
Not right now. I mean, it's going to be a while, right? And it's okay. That's the lagging indicator where prices have to come down. Wages going to have to go up. Look, we still have inflation problems. Right. So there's a lot of other things. I mean, look at the cost of eggs. That's a hot topic right now.
What happened there?
I don't
was on
know.
TikTok and there's this everybody's talking about eggs.
Yeah, I look, and so we have other battles to fight right now, and ultimately, what it's going to do is lead to wage increase, and we have to start everything has to start leveling off because look, when you go put COVID money in place and shutting down everything, look, a lot of that was caused because of just the shutdown, and then they funded all of this. And
it was just artificial and temporarily inflated.
Yeah, so we got to let all that drain out and just get back to whatever this normal is going to be, and everyone will be fine. There's going to be, unfortunately, that other segment that they're going to go through some distress. They're going to go through some issues, and so as real estate professionals, what we need to do is just be empathetic to that and help them in the best way that we can.
I like the fact that you guys work so much with buyers. I feel like they have been really unrepresented the last couple of years, so they need help.
Yes.
Texas buyers need help.
Texas buyers and the Spanish speaking population, the Hispanic buyer needs the biggest help. And so one of our goals is really building out a Spanish speaking division that's not like anything else out there.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, there's a lot of distrust within the Spanish-speaking community, the Hispanic community, when it comes to real estate agents. I've heard of some people charging and misleading their clients and not doing a fiduciary responsibility. And so ultimately our goal is we've got some amazing group of agents within our organization. So one of our core missions is really building out a great Spanish speaking division so that we can put our, the type of services that we provide, we can really pour that into the Hispanic population.
I love that. That's good. Let's back up and let's kind of back. I'm gonna actually work from my notes now.
For sure. Yeah.
Something I don't do very often sometimes. So let's talk about the top 3 things you learned in 2022.
Yeah. So you sent me that, and I'm
It doesn't
like,
have to be 3. It
yeah,
can
I
be
was like,
one.
I
It
don't
can
really
be-
have 3 things because, look, I mean, you know what happened, the last year and a half, right? So my brother passed away October 6th of 2021. October 7th, I had to go into trauma crisis mode of basically triage of making sure that our real estate developments got finished because we had a
Right.
lot of debt that we
Yes.
had obligations
Yeah.
to. And so, going into 2022, I don't really remember much of it. It's kind of like a blur because
Right.
I was just head down, focused. My real estate team, I put them on the side. Thank God I have such amazing team members. I wouldn't be where I am without them. Right. And because of them, they still push the ball forward for our clients and for the good home team and everything else. So 2022 was a year of we keep going. We don't give up. Even when we want to stop, we get up, we put our pants or shorts on, our shoes on, and we
Yep.
just go to work. Right. And we do what we say we're going to do, even when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a lesson, right? You got to keep going.
Yeah, we have to keep going. And so we did for this year, I don't do an end of year business planning.
Okay. Interesting.
The reason I don't do it is because usually that happens in October, November. Then we have holidays. People partake in maybe some adult beverages and they party a lot. Realtors, just people in general. Family comes in town. It can be stressful at times. And so I don't like end of year business planning because people forget their goals.
Yeah.
Right. They get all motivated and then all this happens and then the new year starts and they're like, oh, I forgot what the goal I set.
Right.
And so we do a beginning of the year blast off. And so we just had our blast off and our CEO and founder of eXp Realty, Glenn Sanford, jumped on, came and spent 30 minutes with our team on our sales team meeting 2 weeks ago. And he said something that really solidifies the message of what 22 was of keep going is like, the small promises equals big rewards. Mm-hmm. And so you need to keep the small promises that you make to yourself and to your clients in order to reap the big rewards. So the small promises of staying true to your lead generation every single day, even when things aren't going your way, right? Even when you don't have as many clients or maybe deals fall apart and you may be a little bit financially strapped and you want to give up. It's the small promises that you made and the commitments that you made to your business, maybe to your family, to your kids, to yourself, that you don't break those promises. So our theme for this year and continue moving forward is those small promises equal big rewards if you're willing to keep them.
Well, I think you're speaking to consistency is what you're speaking to.
100%.
And we're having a lot of conversations about that, Okay, let me ask you this. What are the basics of lead generation today?
For us, I'll use us because I use a lot of older school techniques with some modern approaches mixed in. And so the older techniques is we believe that we should be making 300 calls a day.
300 calls
300
a day.
calls a day because number one, especially in the real estate industry, a lot of agents build their business just off their sphere, right? And sphere referrals. So people that know, like, trust, and love them. And that should only be a pillar of their business. Because during these times in the last couple of months, what we've found is that when the market starts to shift, their database typically doesn't generate as much business as it did before. And if that's the only pillar that you're generating your income off of, then you're in trouble because if that dries up or slows down, who does it affect? It affects you as a business owner. And so what we believe in is one, providing great service and staying in constant contact with our sphere data and database, but adding new people to that. So $300 a day, you're going to average about a 10% contact rate. Even in today's times when people don't answer their phone, we have hovered around a 10% contact rate.
Okay.
So that means you're talking to 30 people a day roughly. Let's just say you only work 5 days a week. You don't work on Saturdays or Sundays, or you take 2 days off, throughout the week. That's 150 people that you come in contact with. From that, you're going to funnel that down out of 150 a week. You're going to set probably 2 to 5 appointments from that, depending on the lead sources that you're generating. And so out of the 2 to 5 appointments that you're setting, you're probably going to run about 50% of those appointments, because look, people say yes to meeting, and then what do? They ghost you.
They ghost you.
Yep,
yeah.
or they cancel.
Yeah.
And so you're going to run maybe 1 to 3 a week, and out of that, if you're if you're a good people person, you ask the right questions, they believe that you're going to be able to help them on whatever their needs are, you're going to probably sign 50% of those clients. So if you're only setting 1 a week, then you're in trouble. If you're setting 3 to 5, then ultimately you're going to be signing 1 to 3 clients a week. And then from that, you've got the rest that fall into your nurture, your follow-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that we have found in this industry is that we all do a very, very poor job of following up.
I didn't have a clue you were going to say that.
Yeah, right? So we do a
I'm being sarcastic.
poor job of following up, because what do we do as salespeople? We want the right now business.
Correct. You chase what's happening in front of you right now.
And we like the new leads coming in, not the old stuff.
Yeah.
We like the new people for whatever reason, even though, you've chatted with someone and they said, call me back in a couple months or call me back in a year for you as a salesperson, 100% commission licensed sales agent. That's a long time.
That's
for
a
you.
long time.
So you're like, I'm not worried about, I'm not worried about those over here. I need right now. And so we neglect our follow-up. And so
and then what happens? They end up buying or selling a house out from like a couple of months before that even time frame ends.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are really making an emphasis on those small promises to your follow up, right? If you say, Tamara, I'm going to follow up with you, in a couple months, then put it down and actually do what you say you're going to do, because people respect that. And then just let your messages match what they're saying, the market.
I think everyone as salespeople needed to hear that.
I hope so. I mean, especially my people too, because we're all guilty of it.
We're all guilty of
it,
right? We chase the new hot thing that's sitting right in front of us. We close what's easy. We didn't, and the hard stuff. Yeah, I mean, it gets neglected because you want to go after the easy things,
or we get busy. Yeah. Right? You do your lead generation, you get really, really busy for a month or two. And what do? You're like, man, I'm working so hard for these current clients that I'm exhausted. So I'm not going to do any new lead generation. I'm not going to do any of the follow-up lead generation. And so I'm only focused on this. And then ultimately, you close everyone and hopefully you have a 100% close ratio, that nothing falls out and it doesn't ever come back. But you close all those, and then you go back to the drawing board, and then you've got to reclimb those stairs again.
Your pipeline's empty.
Yeah, your pipeline's not. You don't know where your next closing commission's coming from.
Yep. Back up a second. What are your lead sources? What are the team's lead sources? Just real quick, brief.
Absolutely. So the last couple of years, the time before COVID, it was expireds, it was circle prospecting, and then our sphere and agent referrals. The last couple of years, because inventory levels got down to where we had like 1 day of inventory, right? So the expireds and the canceleds, they weren't there.
Weren't a thing.
And so ultimately, those lead sources were some internet lead sources. Our sphere and database was really, really well. Agent referrals. And then now we're starting to see a pickup back in expireds and canceleds. We're making a really conscious effort for helping for sell by owners, because last year we only closed 2. And our belief is money changes hands when problems are solved. And so, if you think of, all right, if inventory levels have tripled and gone up to about little over 3 months of inventory. It actually fell a little bit just because of the holidays, but it will pop back up to three months of inventory. And we're seeing the days on market increase. Well, if those are people that are on the MLS, what are the for sale by owners feeling?
Right.
They're just getting calls from investors. They're just getting calls from agents that are doing one-offs, not following up, by the way. Mm-hmm. And they're getting bombarded with non-interested buyers. And so ultimately they're going to feel tired. They're going to feel frustrated. So again, money changes hands when problems are solved. So we need to do a better job internally within the Good Home team is to really help that for sale by owner market. And from that, they've already raised their hands. They said, Tamara, I'm ready to sell my house. Maybe they're not willing to pay a commission just yet. And we've got to show the value of why.
You just leave that sign in the yard for a little while longer and they will.
Absolutely. Because look, they're selling for a reason.
Correct.
They're not selling to stay in the house.
Yeah.
They're selling to move it or to liquidate it.
Right.
So we just have to dig deep on that motivation and find out, why do they not want a realtor? Is there distrust? Do they really hate the commission? Is there, realtors are just, their belief is they don't do anything for the money that they earn.
Right.
So we just need to figure out what the reason behind that is. Maybe they sold their house one or two times before on their own and it was super, super easy. And especially during COVID or during the run up, I mean, a for-sale owner could have sold their house in a heartbeat. Realtors were begging for more.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of recap what I'm hearing you say so far. Lead generation. I love to talk about client diversity because I'm very diverse in my client portfolio as well. And so prospect and client diversity. Pivot is always, anytime the market shifts, you got to pivot. You can't be doing the same thing all the time that you used to do before in the previous market. It's not going to work. Nope. And then it's also about be sure that your sales skills are super sharp. Know how to overcome objections, right? Know how to be a salesperson. The tried and true ways of being a salesperson. Follow up, use your CRM, right? Don't drop the ball. Make sure that you know how to overcome objections, close the deal, right? All of those things. It seems so simple. We all know these things.
And when you hear that, the problem is that people like to tune out when you're like sales skills. Overcome their problems and objections. And we, for whatever reason, we've just gotten and viewed that as a negative or slimy.
Well, for sure. There's sexier ways to put it, but it's still the same thing.
Look, I believe in sales skills.
I'm a sales rep.
I'm a salesperson. That's what I've always told people. We do sales. When you hire me, I'm here not to be your best friend. I'm here to sell your house. If we become best friends after, great. If you end up hating me, but I sell your house for the best price possible and I got the job done and you were happy about that, but you don't like me personally, cool. That's okay.
But guess what? That's what they're going to remember.
Yes.
Is that you sold their house for more than anyone else in their neighborhood.
Or I got the job done. We got to the conclusion, which is why they hired me in the first place. But, what I do when talking to agents and agents that are looking at joining our organization is I say, all right, maybe you have a negative viewpoint of selling or the sales terms or handling objections, but we're all human beings. So let's just talk. Let's just have a conversation.
Sure.
So we can get to that point. Absolutely.
Connection is key, right? And you build relationships. People do business with people they know, trust, and like, right?
100%.
We're going to run out. God, I could talk to you forever, but we don't have that kind of time. Let's talk about advice for agents this year. Have we already kind of covered that?
We have. I mean, stay consistent, right? So whatever. And here's what I'd say is and this is what I had to remind my team, right? Like we all do this. I'm guilty of this, of what our core business is, and you can just go back and look at all your closings. That's your core business. And, when we want to start adding something new, we have to go learn that new skill. Right. So like right now we're starting to implement working with a different type of investor through pad split. Right. It's a different.
Whoa, explain.
Yeah. So pad split is where it's a company that comes in and we help investors go buy single family houses. We need to get it at somewhat of a discount, but what we are going to do is we're going to transform that house into, instead of being one single family rental residence, we're going to transform that into renting by bedroom. Right. And so what it's going to do is it's actually going to increase the ROI for your investor client. And so one, we need to go and analyze what areas are the best are the best for this type of investment vehicle. Right. So the type of area, the type of demographic, and the type of investor that wants to hold this in their portfolio. And what we have to do is we have to train our agents on what to look for, because when you acquire the property, acquisition, like anything, is key. So it's what the acquisition cost is going to be.
Sure.
But then you also there's going to be added rehab costs in there to transform it into, you get rid of all common areas, you turn everything into bedrooms. Like you can turn a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage into 6 or 7 bedrooms that you're going to rent out.
So these are like standalone areas within the house.
Yeah, so they're just bedroom,
bathroom, you just kitchenette or something.
Yeah, there's a kitchen. There's no dishwasher. There's no maybe you keep a little eat-in area, but typically the resident's going to eat in their room. And so the rental rates it's rented weekly, but it's a 30-day stay minimum. And so ultimately, what we have to do from an agent is not to go down that point, because again, we could do a whole nother show on this.
I think we might need to, because I'm interested in hearing more about this.
Yeah, I'll definitely be one of my investor clients on this because it increases the ROI big time. But for our agents, that sounds great because they want to work with more investors. We can, having a great consistent lead flow of investors that are buying properties for cash. It's great for our agents from an income perspective. But they have to then go learn what they're analyzing. They have to go learn what's the right buy box criteria for that investor.
Yeah.
And so when you start to go learn something new, what happens to your current book of business, right? It starts to drop because you neglect it. And so ultimately what we tell people is, especially for this year, is don't neglect what your core book of business is. Stay very, very consistent with it. And then in the off time, because look, we all have off time. Don't tell me you're working 24/7 in the business, right? You slowly start to add that skill set in. You learn it inside and out. That way you can talk about it. Then you start to analyze properties, right? So you start to analyze properties like, okay, we can walk into this one. I know it has to be no HOA. It needs to be in a neighborhood that you see more cars on the street because it's going to be increased. You're going to have like 6 or 7 people, 6 or 7 cars there.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're not going to get a complaint from the community and the neighborhood. And then ultimately, what type of investor would work perfect for this? And then, all right, what do you need the acquisition cost is? What's the rehab cost going to be? What are the average weekly rental rates going to be so that you can put that in the calculator and show, all right, this investor, you buy it here. This is the average reno cost, the renovation cost, and this is the average weekly rental rate. And if we stay at a 90% or 80% occupancy, this is going to be your projected cash on cash return.
I'm not going to ask if this is a marketable asset because you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't. But is there a market where this is being done successfully
100%.
already?
Yeah, it's happening. It started in Atlanta. They moved into Tampa. Beth Silverman, who was in town this past week, she was on the Only Real Estate Podcast Worth Listening to. I think it was episode 168, I believe, where she talks about this, right? So Beth introduced Pad Split to me. And from that, it's look, I was poking as many holes as I could in it. And the more that I've started to research it, I feel it's for the working poor, basically, right? Because we're starting to see
For young folks
and the
Super
working
young.
poor. There's
the ones that are just going into the workforce.
Yeah, and think of it this way: like rents are super expensive, housing super expensive,
Right.
And so what you have is you've got this middle ground of people that may be staying at home and they don't want to. Maybe they're couch surfing at friend's house
Right.
or family's house, and they're like, all right, you got to go, Tamara. You can't be sleeping on the couch
Right.
anymore. And maybe you've got a group in here that's bouncing around from extended stay to extended stay, and so ultimately it allows them to get into having a place that they can stay. The average pad split renter or tenant stays 9 months. They get access to Teladoc Health. So they get a little bit of some health
Really?
in there. Yep. Then it also gets reported to their credit so that it can show payments on time. So ultimately the goal is to help them get into that point where, they're moving on to a rental, or, eventually we help them get into buying later on in life.
Well, and you have the property management company, so when they're ready to do a step up, guess what?
Yeah, and ultimately our property management, Homeward Property Management, would help with managing it for that investor client as well. So, I mean, but for agents right now, new agents, maybe it's something they can go learn because they're still trying to find what is their core lead source is going to be. If you go to my Instagram, Nick Good Realtor, and watch it, I did a reel on this that talked about when I was in full-time production before leading just the Good Home team, is I only focused on expireds and cancels. I didn't really go down different paths. I wanted to, but I knew I had so much more juice to squeeze out of expireds and cancels that my goal was to see, could I make $500 to $1 million in commissions just working really that one lead source, because there was plenty of opportunity. Now there is again in that, or you become a for sale by owner machine. Like for me, I was not that strong at it. I have a lot of room to grow in that lead source. Or like Beth Silverman closed $23 million in 2022. And the majority of that was working with investors. It was Airbnbs, because she's in the St. Pete in Florida. It was Airbnbs, VRBOs, and pad splits. And so that's over $600,000 in commissions working with investors, but then working down the niches of the investment categories.
Love that. Does Pat Smith, okay, let's say Collin County bans Airbnbs. Does Pat Smith fall underneath that category?
Yeah, Pad Split.
Pad Split. I'm
Yep.
saying it wrong. Well,
Yep.
I wrote it down wrong.
Yeah,
Let's try
Pad
that again.
Split.
That makes more sense.
SPLIT. And we're still analyzing that. No, from my understanding, it does not. Only because it's 30-day stays minimum. And
Airbnb's short term falls under the
That-
30-day.
yeah.
I think that Tarrant County defined it as that, didn't they?
as under 30 days,
Yeah.
I believe. So it's a
So it
30.
wouldn't-
It's advertised as a weekly rental rate, but it has to be a 30-day stay minimum.
Okay.
So and then there's you got to do your own due diligence, because ultimately in some of the cities that, if you're not related by blood or marriage, that there's a certain capacity that you could have non-family and non-blood, or non-marriage living in under one dwelling.
Okay.
And so I know in Fort Worth, they have a rule on it, and they loosely determine who they want to go after and who they don't. And so you've got to do your own due diligence, and it's enter at your own risk on that. But for the most part, it's, from an investment purpose, it's a great ROI. Right. And what you do with it is if you're ready to liquidate it, what it does is Pad Split has created an internal community that they can go and exchange. They can go and sell their portfolio or sell their product, sell their property or their investment vehicle within another Pad Split member. And so they keep it all in house, because think of it this way. Where I've spoken the biggest hole is like, if I convert this house and then ultimately I want to go sell it in the future, well, now I have to go convert it
You've
back
got like
into
3 leases, and you've got a big conversion problem,
Yes,
right?
yes, and so that's one of the things they said is like, no, you go sell it to an internal member at a multiplier, because there's going to be revenue that's generated from that investment vehicle.
Well,
So
it'd be nice you don't have to go back and do that reno all over again.
yeah, that was the one thing that I was really poking holes in, and then their rent up is fairly quickly on average. I think it was like 40 or 50 days to get pretty much as stabilized. Meaning if you turn it into a 7-bedroom, they've leased up 6 of the 7 to get it stabilized.
That's super interesting. We'll have to come back to that because we've run out of time for
Yeah.
today. I don't even think we followed any of this anyway.
That's all right. That just means I can come back.
Yeah, it does mean you're always welcome back. So thank you for being my guest today, Nick. If you guys want some information on Pad Split or anything else that Nick is up to, you're looking to join a team, I highly recommend that you reach out to Nick Good, and also make sure that you tune into his podcast. Again, the name is The Only Real Estate Podcast Worth Listening To. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, if you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. So give me an opportunity to talk to you about your title needs and make it a great day.